Here we are back again for International Art Dolls Registry's Member Spotlight for the month of June. Get ready, we're going to Colorado. Hi and welcome back everybody. I am Fredo Hernandez, International Art Doll Registry's Executive Administrator. Today we're sitting down with a young lady who's been a part of our family for about 5 years now. She is from Colorado. Everybody please say hi to Vicky Shaw.
Hi Fredo, thanks a lot for having me. I feel really honored to be interviewed. Hi everybody.
Vicky! Wow, so this is the first time that we've been able to actually see each other since the first and only time that we ever met, which was at Deb Wood's Florida Sculpting Retreat, which was theme punk themed. And, it was an incredible retreat. And to be able to have the pleasure of meeting you and sculpting next to you and getting to know you, it was just a tremendous amount of fun. That's why I am always so glad that I took so many photos and videos of those retreats, because they were so dear to me. And I had to make a point to take a selfie with everybody that went to the retreat. So that's the reason why. But talk to us about you. What is your growing up story? What was it like living in your household?
Yeah, I really loved meeting you as well at Deb's. That was a blast. I hope one day we could do that again. In my household, there was a lot going on. My mother always had crafts going on. My mother did a lot of knitting, crocheting. We learned how to do needlepoint, and we had a friend that had a ceramic shop, so we did a lot of ceramics. So my childhood was spent in doing a lot of art projects and stuff, because we really honestly didn't have a lot of money to go to a lot of places. So that's where we did a lot of times, is spend it at my two girlfriends' houses at doing ceramics all the time.
Nice. And we're finding that a lot of the artists who are part of our family now, they grew up in an artistic household, or had somebody that was either directly related to them or had constant communication with that was from the art world. So I'm glad that you had that exposure early on. Talk to us about your college career. Did you go to college? And if you did, what was your major? But if you didn't go to college, what kind of jobs did you have growing up?
Yeah, I did go to college. I went to a college called Bell Ray Institute for Animal Technology, and I became an animal nurse, and became certified in taking care of animals like you see on Animal Planet for the emergency vets, and found that I really couldn't support myself in that. So I went into the human medicine, and now I work as a sterile technician who is an educator. So I teach everybody how to clean their instruments so that when you go have your surgery, they're nice and safe.
Very nice. Yeah, I was a animal lover growing up as well. I had all kinds of pets. I had parakeets, I had white mice, I had hamsters, I had fish, of course. I had aquatic frogs, I had rabbits, I had a goose one time for a pet. What else did I have? No insects. I couldn't handle insects at all. They creep me out. They give me the heebie-jeebies. But have you traveled? Do you like traveling? If you have traveled, where is your absolute favorite place to travel and why?
Wow, Fredo, that's kind of a hard one, because we really didn't do a lot of traveling. We did take a couple trips when I was a kid to Disneyland, and the wonderful trip that we had when my husband and daughter and I went to Florida, and then I met you guys in Fort Lauderdale. That was pretty cool. I've never been out of the country. One day I hope to be. My bucket list would be to go to Hawaii and go to Scotland. So eventually maybe I can make that happen.
Yes, Hawaii was on my bucket list too. And I actually got the opportunity to go to Maui and the Big Island, and it was just insane. You really transport. It's almost like the life that you are leaving behind really does stay behind, because not once did my problems, worries, or anything that I had going on in my life follow me to Hawaii. It was almost like I left that version of myself back at home while I was there in Hawaii, and it was such a enriching experience. It's just absolutely stunning. But I'm glad that that Florida trip was pretty memorable for you too. Vicky, why did you choose one-of-a-kind sculpting versus any other art form? And do you currently do any other types of art as well as your one-of-a-kind sculpting?
Wow. With the OOAK, it means that I get to do what I want to do without being conformed to a mold or a must follow this rule. I actually love the fact that I can make it my own and it doesn't come out of a box, kind of thing. What else do I do? Gosh, I costume sew, and I actually knit, and I actually do beadwork. So I kind of do a little bit on all those sides.
Yes, I agree. It's that empowering feeling that you get knowing that you really have no restrictions. You can really express your true self through one-of-a-kind sculpting, because, once you know the basics of one-of-a-kind sculpting, you can really create whatever is in your mind. Whatever your mind sees, whatever excites you the most, you can bring it to life. With the armature and the clay and the costuming, it's very liberating to know that you really don't have any restrictions. Really, the only restrictions that you have are of techniques that you can do with the art form, but have yet to learn how to do it. That's really the only limitation. So it's pretty freeing. What do you find inspires you the most to create the one-of-a-kind sculptures that you do?
Oh, that one's easy. Fantasy. I love witches, and I love dragons, and I love fairies, and so I get really into that kind of thing when I'm downstairs in my studio thinking about things to make. So I just kind of sit and look at fantasy shows. I'll watch like The Hobbit or things like that, and it's like, oh, I want to make that one. Oh, can I make that one? Oh, what about that one? So I got 100 things in my head, but I've only made about 8. So I'm working on it, and I'm trying to get better, but there's a lot up here that needs to come out. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I can relate. I love exposing myself to fantasy because it's just so imaginative, it's so creative, and it really coincides with the craziness that is already within my own imagination. So what I do is I have a running list on my computer of the sculptures that I want to make so that I never lose track of them. I create a folder on my computer for each sculpture that I want to create. And then within those folders, I save photos of, like, I'll go on Pinterest and I'll save photos of things that I want my final piece to have. Like, I'll take a photo, I'll say, oh, I want this part of the wardrobe to be in my final sculpture. I want this hairstyle. I want this pose. So it's a mashup of all these different types of photos so that I know to incorporate all of those different aspects into my final piece so that I have some sort of blueprint, a starting point. So when I go back to it and I have, the time to do it, then I pretty much have everything I need to get started. But that's great. Right, let's get to love. Tell us you and Michael's love story, and do you guys have any kids? And if so, how many?
Okay, that one. I ran over my husband with a plate of chicken at a Renaissance group called the Society of Creative Anachronism, and thought he was dating someone else, so waited until the next event where my husband's character was Native American and he was in regalia, and he passed by the tent and he had a loincloth on. Let's just say by the end of that event, everyone knew we were probably going to get married. So that was our love thing. Yes, we have one daughter. She is going to be turning 20 in May, and she is the love of our life. And we're very, very proud of her. She's going to school to do cinema makeup, to do FX makeup. So she has a lot of that creative stuff with us as well. So yeah, that's my love story.
Comedy. That's hilarious. I love it. How exciting, though, that your daughter is in special effects makeup. I am obsessively addicted to the show called Face Off. It's in syndication now, but it had 13 seasons. Oh my God. My boyfriend and I just watched that show, and I'm currently, I had to buy all the seasons on Amazon Prime, and I just, whenever I'm in my studio doing either computer work or sculpting, I always have Face Off on in the background because there's so much wicked creativity on that show. And that's kind of what I want to do with my art, not special effects makeup, but I want to take the creativity from special effects makeup and mash it with one-of-a-kind sculpting so that I can kind of have the realism and the uniqueness of special effects makeup with the one-of-a-kind aspect of clay sculpting. So, you'll see a lot of that translated in my art that's going to be coming out, from this point forward. But that's really rad that she's into that. It's something that she and I have in common. It's really exciting. How did you actually find one-of-a-kind sculpting? How did you come across it?
Well, I picked up a book called Fairies, Gnomes, and something, I think it was. And there was a little baby in it called Sweet William. And I thought I would like to try and sculpt because I had been doing polymer clay jewelry for a while. And I thought I really would love to see if I could actually manage to do that. I can't draw to save my soul, but for some reason, my fingers knew what to do with the sculpting. And when I created that first baby, I was kind of hooked. And so from then on, I've just decided that's the way to go. And that's probably what I'm going to do for a long time.
Well, good. At least I know for myself, I'm very excited to have you as part of our organization, so I'm really glad that you are in fact going to continue to create this type of art because you're so funny and you're such a sweetheart. And, in our community of IADR, you're the type of people that we love having as part of our organization, because it's this wholehearted authenticity that comes from people like you. So that combined with, your beautiful art, we're very glad that, you're going to stick with it and that we're going to have the pleasure of sharing in your artistic journey for years to come, hopefully. But what other things in life bring you joy on a daily basis?
Oh, wow. That could be a number of things, but off the top of my head, it would be sitting on my back patio and listening to really soft music like guitarro and listening to the birds and seeing all my flowers, listening to my daughter laugh, listening to my husband laugh, and hearing people just being happy in my vicinity. I think that's what really brings me joy. Also, the look on somebody's face of, wow, that is so cool, and you made that. That kind of gives me a little bit of joy, too.
That's really sweet. And you see, that only adds to my previous point. You have a beautiful heart. That's great to hear. So I was going to ask what your favorite genre is to sculpt, but I think you already answered that, fantasy. But also, what level do you want your art to reach?
I seem to be partial to fairies right now. I am working on a centaur, but I've done about 2 fairies and I have 3 more in works. I seem to really love to do the wings and to do the ethereal look on them. I would love to one day be professional. I would love to work at that and win the shows that we do and advance from the intermediate up and finally take on the professional. I would love to be able to be half as good as Deb or Forrest Rogers. I mean, that would be my goal.
Very nice. Yes, those wings they can get so ridiculously intricate and beautiful, and there's so many designs to make that I can see that being a very easy hook to continue to want to make fairy after fairy, because there's just so many options and they look so good. But what do you find to be the most difficult part of the sculpting process?
Yeah, okay. Most people are going to say the hands. Those are hard and I hate them. For me, it's the symmetry of the eyes. That drives me absolutely bananas, trying to get the symmetry of the eyes correct. One's up here, one's down there. And it can take me days to get a face that I think is good. So I know that one of the things that you've done is you've practiced making heads. And I think I need to do that because that's where it drives me insane. And sometimes I can have an idea in my head and I want to do it. And I look at the face and I hate it. And I'm almost in tears because the eyes are wrong, or I've had to cut the nose off or whatever. So for me, it's the eyes and the nose is the hardest. And yeah, followed by the hands.
Yes. And I saw an artist do this before, but one of the things that I do now to make sure that my eyeballs are tracking in the same direction is as I'm sculpting the eyes and putting them in, I'll actually take photos of the face square on, not at any kind of angle, and I will make sure that I'll look at the photo and make sure that both are tracking the same way. If they're not, then what I do is I take a X-Acto knife, or a very, very sharp needle pointed tool, and I'll place that tip on the white part of the eyeball, and then I will move the eye while referencing the photo in the direction that I notice that it needs to go. Then once I do that, I'll take another photo, and then I'll compare the 2 photos to make sure that it's finally correct. And if not, then I'll just keep messing with it. But I find that helps. And also sometimes it's helped where once the eyes are in and I think it's ready, I'll flip the head upside down and I'll look at the eyes that way. It's helped a couple times, but I find that not every time it is as accurate as taking the photos. Now I know this is hard to pick, but from all the art dolls that you've made to date, which is your most favorite that you've created for whatever reason, and why?
That's easy. That's my steampunk fairy that I made with you and Deb. That thing surprised me that I could make something that beautiful, and that, to me, perfect. I think my biggest problem now is that I'm judging everything about that against that and saying, I don't know if I can make anything that good, but I'm determined to get past that because I actually have it in my living room in a cube store, those little glass storage cubes so that she doesn't get bumped or anything. And I just love seeing it. Every time I walk by it, no, I made that. I really made that. And then I get that goofy look on my face and go, I made that.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful thing. That's great. I'm glad to hear you say that. I love that you're feeling the pride of making that yourself. And yes, you can absolutely do that again and again. I used to be very, very critical about my own art, but I started to ease up a little bit and not be as hard on myself. So what I started doing is I would just create. once it was done, it would be a battle. Like, I would look at it and I would feel the feelings and the joy of accomplishing the end result, because it's part of the reason why I create, is for that end result, that feeling of pride, sense of accomplishment. And as soon as I would start to hear those little voices in my head trying to creep in and say, oh, well, look, you messed up on this, you messed up on that, that inner saboteur, once they tried to start knocking on my door, I would just stop looking at it. And I would go and plan my next one. And I would literally just keep working. I would only look at my artwork long enough to feel and experience the positives. And then I would just move on. So let's talk about what is the part of the sculpting process that brings you the most happiness, and what is your sculpting process?
Let's see. I think the happiest part of sculpting that I like the most is once I get the head done, and then I can start building out the rest of it. And then I'm really happy with it because being in the medical field, I get my anatomy. I know where it's supposed to go. I know how it's supposed to look. So that's the easy part. And the sculpting process that I usually go through is I do the head first, and then I measure the hands and the feet from the head. But I've made the armature up and everything, but I get the thought of my head in there, and then I match the body to the head. So it would be doing head, and then I do the whole body, and then I add the arms, and then I add the legs, and then I add the hands and the feet. I have to think about that. So I know a lot of people do it a little differently, but that's kind of the way I'm more comfortable in doing it. So once I get that trunk, then I know I can work off the trunk and hold it and not squish it and kill it, so to speak. So yeah, that's usually how I get it done.
Very nice. Good. I actually had a hard time with the process, because I would notice that a lot of artists start that way. That's the most common way of creating a one-of-a-kind sculpture is they always make the head first and then they do everything else. For me, I had this thing where I said to myself, I'm going to make the body first and then I'll make the head, so that I know how big to make the head, because I could always make the head bigger or smaller, but I can't make the armature bigger because it's already made. But I found that now I've reversed it. Now I'm also doing the head first, because getting that most intricate part of that process out of the way, it relieves a lot of stress, because you're doing all this work on the body, attaching limbs, and then you do the head. It's like, oh, now I have to do the head. So getting that out of the way is very beneficial for me, that I'm noticing now. That makes the process a lot easier for me. Moving on over to, is there a sculpture that you have been just yearning to make, that is going to be really exciting for you, that you haven't yet gotten around to for whatever reason?
Oh, that one. Well, I have a tree downstairs that I've been making. I started it 3 years ago, and it is supposed to be the tree of the golden fruit. I had wanted to do a Norse myth of the goddess that protects the tree, the golden apple. And I have the accessories. I actually have the armature ready. I even have sort of the skull ready to go. And I've got the tree halfway done, and I've stopped because I've freaked out, because it's not a fantasy person. It's you have to do it more in a realism, and I'm just not sure that I'm there for that realism yet. But when I feel like I really am there, then that's when I'm going to finish that sculpture and make it really cool.
Very nice. And it's always nice to have that excitement to look forward to. That's why I always like to plan my sculptures out in advance, because I like the anticipation of getting to it and getting to create it. So I like to have the idea. That's why I have the folders on my computer, so that I have the idea of the sculpture there, so I can get excited about it. So, Vicky, do you have a artistic accomplishment or milestone that is the most memorable for you to date?
That would have to be the first commission piece that I did for a friend of mine that I went through high school with. He passed away shortly after I made it, so it made a big impact on me. It was a custom piece of his son, and his son was a guitar player, and so he wanted to do this piece for his wife, for her Christmas present, and I struggled with it for 6 months. And I was fairly new in the business, fairly new with sculpting, and as much as I've learned with doing things with Deb and everything, I still think the fact that I did this kind of cold turkey and not really having a lot of experience with it, I think that was my proudest moment when I was able to hand it over to him and he was speechless and said, "Oh my God, this is so beautiful." I think that really touched my heart. And then when he passed away before Christmas the next year, it broke my heart. But that is where my memory is of the best thing that I did before the steampunk fairy. So, yeah.
Oh, that's huge. That's incredibly rewarding and incredibly sad at the same time. But yeah, you see, that just proves my point even further that yes, you can make something as beautiful as, if not more so, than the steampunk fairy that you made, because you sculpted a commission piece with a likeness to a living person. And it was so good that it left them speechless. Vicky, I know you're so much better than you think you are. And I think it's a common ailment that plagues us artists in whatever genre we are creating in, whether music or fine art or clay sculpting, is that we're very, very critical of our own work. So much so that it's to our detriment. Until we get to that point where we ease up on ourselves, we're kinder to ourselves and our art, it's going to continue to really hold us back from where we want to get to artistically. You're so much better than you think you are. And I can't wait to see you realize it, because you deserve that. Vicky, segueing on over to tell us something about you that we may not yet already know. Give us a little juice.
Gosh, that's kind of hard. That I'm a Sims freak, that I play a lot of Sims sometimes, that I'm a Renaissance freak, that I love going to the Renaissance fair and dressing up in character and really mocking those that have zippers because I spend so long doing the eyelets because that's how you're supposed to do it. Gosh, I can't think of anything else. I mean, I'm a little weird, but it's a good kind of weird. And I think that would be the oddest thing about me.
Me too! To this day, I'm playing The Sims on my brother's PS5. There's just something incredibly rewarding about building those houses and styling them and putting a family in there. That's just so fulfilling, Okay, so I want to talk about, if you would tell us how IADR has helped you through your artistic journey and what you like the most about International Art Law Registry.
Okay, well, that's really easy. I had joined another group previous to this, and they were not helpful at all. And I felt as if improving would be detrimental to my experience with that group. And I was online and I found the doll registry and joined it. And I think I actually spoke to Deb at that point and found out how welcoming and loving and supportive that you guys are. And you guys have just taken me to a point I never thought I'd reach. You've given me all the support that I could possibly want. Your shows have pushed me. I keep trying, but with my work schedule, sometimes I don't make those shows. I usually make them, 2 or 3 months after the due date. But I keep pushing and I keep trying, and I'm hoping to make this next show here for the end of May. So let's hope I can make that. But yeah, you guys, you build everybody up, and you're not afraid to have competition. You're not afraid to have somebody better than you. You're not putting people down. At one point, I had done a sculpture, and the 2 people that were supposedly mentoring me had told me so much about how I had to change the face that I literally crushed it and decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. And that's when I went looking and found you guys. So yeah, you guys are absolutely amazing, and I talk you guys up every single time I meet somebody that wants to get into sculpting. I tell them, join this group, because it's the best thing I ever did. And I love you, Deb, and I love you, Fredo.
Oh, here I go again. Thank you. That was really... This is why I love asking this question, because it's a little selfish, because I do so much, and because I talk up and try to raise all of our members up because of the quality of the members that we have. I invest so much time and effort. And so, me asking this particular question to our members and really hearing what they have to say on a personal level about IADR is what really fuels my fire to continue to invest as much as I do to IADR financially and in my time, because you guys tell me through answering this particular question how much it actually is benefiting you as the artist, as the individual, because that's really why we exist. Truly, we are a community of artists that exists not to raise or make money, but to be a place where we can be that for people like you, so, and that's why, I recently posted that member appreciation post in our Facebook group, because that's always on my mind. Every single day that I do something IADR related, I'm always grateful for every single member that we have, whether they participate in the shows or not, whether they post questions in our groups or not. It doesn't matter if they're active, because they might not feel comfortable, putting themselves out there, asking questions. Maybe they get their fulfillment from seeing, the interaction between the membership and seeing everybody else's work and seeing all the support that everybody gets, and maybe that's enough for them. And that's great, because it means that we're also helping those type of members. So everybody gets something different from our group. And that's why I like asking it, because there's so many different points of view. And I want people out there to know that this community isn't just about sculpting to sell your artwork. You have to join this group to only become a professional. No, it's for you to be whatever you want to get out of it. So thank you for answering truthfully. That was incredible. Well, Vicky, sadly, it's time to let you go. But I do want to thank you very deeply for accepting to sit down and speak with us. I know when I met you, you were very much against being in front of a camera in any capacity. You told me at the retreat that, when I told everybody that I was going to take a selfie with them the next day, that you were very, very, very hesitant and against it. And so when you allowed me to take a selfie with you, I was very I was very touched, that you had that much faith in me, that you trusted me enough to let your guard down, just to take that photo. So I was a little worried when I invited you for this interview that, you would pass. So when you accepted, I was really excited, because I'd get to see you again, and you're just a great person, Vicky. You really are. So thank you for your time and allowing us to get to know you.
Thank you so much for having me, Fredo. I really appreciate this. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to everybody. So thank you. I hope you guys see my work soon. Bye.
To everybody else, thank you guys for sharing this time with us. We already have a member lined up for July, so stick around and find out who that's going to be. We'll talk to you then, guys. See ya.